Welcome to this week's Q&A. It's a beautiful, bright, sunny Tuesday here in Sydney, and the question we've got this week actually relates to Sydney because one of our viewers has sort of reiterated what many think, and they've asked the question saying, look, what are the current lockdowns in Sydney going to do in terms of impact on the residential property market in Australia? And great question, as we all know, and the answer is it depends, because it depends on many things. How long the lockdown is going to last for, the severity in terms of how severe the lockdown remains over the period of time, more importantly, what sort of measures the state government or perhaps even the federal government can assist businesses and employees and employers with. So there are lots of things that we have to think about, but I guess the big takeaway that we need to remember is we've got some history to go with now, not like last year. In March, April 2020, no one knew what was going to happen, although some of us had some reasonable ideas in terms of the impacts on the property markets. So if we look at things this year, we know that after a lockdown, there's a massive rebound. There's pent-up demand. There's a rebound in terms of people being able to get out again and attend physical auctions. So currently we're just going into this lockdown, we're a couple of weeks into it, and if I look at the latest CoreLogic numbers for auction clearance rates, let's say to the 2-week period to the 4th of July, about 76% roughly, 76.4% clearance rate. So that was down about 2.4% on the corresponding 2-week period to the 20th of June. There's no major impact, as we can see from that, and quite frankly I don't see there being a major impact at the moment either. A bit like Victoria, where we saw obviously transaction volumes come down as the lockdown continued. Perhaps properties weren't offered for sale or withdrawn from the market, so there was a reduction in sales volumes, but prices are resilient, and I continue to think that this will happen now. So when the person said, you know, what are the impacts going to be on the property market, the question really is, what's going to happen to the price of properties? And as I said actually last year, I think the price of properties will continue to increase. And in certain areas, sought after areas, higher quality properties, they're continuing to increase relatively strongly. So if we look at data from not just CoreLogic, if we look at bank data in terms of where the lending growth has been, we're seeing investors starting to enter the market again. There's been a little bit of a slowdown from first home buyers as a lot of that demand was brought forward earlier in the year through government stimulus measures. But owner-occupiers are still a driving force, the right sizes. You know, they're buying new homes that are either larger, smaller, in different locations. They're right-sizing their dwellings for their own lifestyles. And that's still what's driving lending growth way above what investor lending growth does. So I think that's, in a nutshell, I suppose, what's going to happen. I see a slowdown in transaction volumes naturally in Sydney due to these lockdowns, but overall I think the impact is going to be fairly minimal as long as governments step to the fore and support local businesses and employees and make sure that that's as robust as it was last year, where we had JobKeeper, etc. So it's going to be different, and it's probably going to be targeted, but it needs to be really effective. And the most important thing, as we've seen, I mean, I guess most people here have seen the new Grim Reaper style ads that have come on about COVID. People need to recognise that the big problem that Australia has now, and where it's lagging the rest of the developed world severely, is the lack of vaccinations that have occurred. So we need people to get vaccinated so we can start opening up sooner rather than later. And I hope that everyone does that for their own safety and for the safety of their family and friends and loved ones and everyone within Australia. So see you next week at our Q&A. All the very best to Australian expats, and especially to people locked down in Australia, in Sydney here. We know what that's like, and I wish you all the very best. I'm Unterweger from Wise Guru.